In this video, we're going to look at using classes in WordPress, and we'll start by looking at this small plugin I've written to add a new custom post type. In this case, it's a custom post type for storing products. If you were to search on the web for how to do something like that, you might end up with some code that looks something like this. And right now we've got some code that's entirely procedural. You'll see something right here where we're adding an action to hook into the init hook. We've defined a function that's going to be called, and here is the function. The function doesn't do much other than just define what our custom post type is, and then it goes ahead and registers it here. So like I said, this is something you'd probably see if you searched around for how to do this, and the instructions would be something along the lines of just copy and paste this into something like a functions.php file. And there's nothing really wrong with this, but we can make it a little better, and we can do that by using classes in WordPress. And so what I mean by that is we can start by, in this plugin file, I'm going to go ahead and add a new class here. I'm going to call it class fqcpt, and I've defined a class. So rather than just simply calling this global function, which starts to pollute these, the global functions in WordPress right here, I'm going to call this class instead. So instead of doing that, I'm going to do something like new and call this class, which means I need to fire this off in its constructor. So I want to add a constructor, construct, and in this constructor I'm going to take this initializing action that I've already gotten written here, but instead of calling a global function like we have been doing, I'm going to call a method relative to this class right here. So if I go down, I'm going to make a new method called register cpt public. Okay, and so at the moment it's not going to find this, and so what I need to do is, rather than calling a function name here, I need to specify an array and say that I'm pointing at this, which is the current class I'm in, and the function type is called, or the method name is register cpt. So when this initialize hook is called, it's going to call this class with that method name. And at this point, I can take this code I've already written and I can paste it into my function. I can add my missing semicolon there, delete this, and at this point I have an entirely usable plugin class right here, and it does pretty much the same thing the procedural code did, but it's now encapsulated inside of this class. So that was kind of step one of how you can start changing your procedural code, and in this example it's really not super useful, so you might be wondering what's the point. And so I've got another example here that takes this a little further. So rather than just doing this all in a single class, we're going to break it up into two classes, because the problem here is well, if I want to register, let's say I have this product custom post type I'm making, and I want to add a variation on this product. So I might copy and paste this. I can change product to variation, and I've now got a variation along with my product. So that's cool, and that works well as far as the class is concerned, but it's copying and pasting a lot of code that we don't need. It's really the only difference between these two things happening right here is just this name. And so sticking with classes, one thing I could do as well is I could say I'm going to create a new method here. I'll make this one protected function, and I'm going to change this one from register custom post type to register product types, and I'll go ahead and make this new one register custom post type, and I want to pass in a name, and let's go ahead and specify that that's a string. Okay, and so I can take this right here or actually I'm not specifying a name, I'm specifying this slug. So I can remove this. So at this point it's passing in a slug, and then it goes ahead and creates the post type based on that slug. So I can now change all of this to this register custom post type product and variation. So now I've gotten rid of my duplicate code. I'm using objects. It's really cool. The problem here is that I might have other plugins, or probably not themes, but I might have other plugins or other sites where this is just a common thing I need to do a lot, is registering custom post types. And I may find that most of them have kind of the same options, but I'm really just kind of defining a couple things. And so this becomes a little less reusable because it's pretty much linked to this class. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up another version I have here. And let's start by looking at this. So this is my new class, and I'm going to rename a couple of these things. So let's say I have my product, and let's start here. So what I've done in this class is, just like before, I've kind of got a general class I'm calling, and on the constructor I'm registering a custom post type, but here you can see I'm requiring this other class I've created, and I am creating my custom post type through this class. So all of this stuff going on here now gets boiled down to just this. So that's creating my product, and if I want to create a variation, I can just do this right here. Variation. And that's all it is. And so let's look inside this class right here. So if I close this, let's open up this class. And so what's going on here is I've really just abstracted, actually I'm going to keep this one open a bit. So I've abstracted all of these kind of variables that get set as far as labels and what these custom post types can do. All of these have kind of been abstracted over to class properties for this new class I've made that's just responsible for registering a post type. You just have to pass in what it does, what it's named, kind of some menu options, and it'll register it for you. So all this gets passed into this constructor, which gets saved into these properties, and then it fires off this register custom post type method, which is pretty similar to the one we have over here. And so the difference being that, one, my code got pretty slim in the main class here where I'm registering this. It's pretty easy to read too, because I don't really care necessarily how it's implemented from a high level view. I just care what's happening. And here I can see I'm registering a custom post type, and I'm registering a product and a variation. It's really easy to read. And then the other cool thing is that I can now reuse this pretty much anywhere in WordPress as long as I have access to that class. So if I wanted to in a theme or maybe another plugin, it's just as simple as requiring this and then using this this class here. I could also bring this out into maybe a separate WordPress plugin that I can use across all my sites, and it's as simple now as using just this couple lines of code to register my plugins. Makes your code really reusable, not only across the site but across the different sites you'd be making in WordPress. So to recap, in this video we've looked at how writing classes in WordPress is different than writing procedural code you might be seeing, and I went ahead and gave you an example of how you might benefit from starting to write your code like that. It might seem like a little extra work at first, but hopefully I've shown you that as your projects get larger and have more moving pieces, you can appreciate the readability of using classes and maybe how it'll save you some time in the long run.